suffice it to say that the nuclear question is the reason why we're in this in the first place. If Iran was just a radical country run by radical people, but it'd still be a problem. But they are revolutionary. There's no doubt in my mind that at some point in the future, if this radical clerical regimes remain in charge in Iran, they will decide they want a nuclear weapon.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio on the key issue driving the conflict with Iran and its nuclear program. President Trump is said to be unhappy with the regime's latest ceasefire proposal, namely because Iran does not address its atomic ambitions. And joining us now is retired General Jack Keane. He's a Fox News senior strategic analyst and could not have a better guest today. I wanted to mention this because I thought it brought it all together. Richard Haass, who is a foreign policy guy in D.C., I know you've known him for a while, he wrote this today that basically, the president should take Iran up on its offer, saying that Iran has reportedly proposed to the U.S. that the two countries focusing on reopening the Strait of Hormuz and postpone consideration of Iran's nuclear program and other issues. The United States should accept this approach and suggest these negotiations commence as quickly as possible. Do you agree?
I don't think that's a deal that's acceptable to President Trump. I mean, we're 3 weeks into this ceasefire. And we went to the ceasefire, remember, they shut down the Straits of Hormuz. The president took a look at it, thought maybe there's a possibility of getting some negotiations here, set a deadline. We're a week past the deadline. The Iranians have made numbers of proposals to us. None of them have been acceptable to the president, all for very good reasons, because they're not meeting our objectives. And I don't think that's the Iranians' objective. I think their objective is really just to stall and drag out these negotiations so that there's more pressure on the president in terms of the economic situation and the political situation. They believe time is on their side, and they will eventually get maybe two things. One, the president to stop the war entirely and just accept the status quo, or two, make concessions to a deal that they are not prepared to make right now. So I think where we really are is likely a reassessment at the meeting yesterday that took place in the White House on this subject to plot a pathway forward. I think, to me, the obvious pathway forward is finish what we started. The negotiations have not worked. So go back to the combat operations, finish up the last 2 weeks that we were not able to complete, about 25% of what is left. Go back to the original objective, take away all of their offensive capability so that they will no longer be a predator in the region. Let's accomplish that mission. Let's also open the Straits of Hormuz. All of that makes some sense. And at the same time, if we're not already doing it, I think the Mossad and the CIA should be doing everything that they can inside of Iran to undermine this regime, because there is no doubt the regime is getting weaker by the day as the economic issues begin to really take its toll. I'd make one more point. For those who believe that all we should do is continue to blockade and they maintain the Straits of Hormuz closed, that somehow that will eventually change the Iranian behavior, that is misguided. Because you got to look at their situations through their eyes, not through our eyes, and what's reasonable. They will absorb this economic suffering from the blockade because they don't care about their people. Gas lines, electricity shut down. They'll put up with all of that. For what reason? Just to survive. And we have to understand who they really are, and they are absolutely hardliners here. So I think the most reasonable path going forward is finish what we started, and that's return to combat operations and open up the straits. That's the best course of action now.
That's a very important point. It was your last one, and a good point to make. But President Trump, in the last hour, he just posted on Truth that they got a message from the Iranians, and I will say that in the Truth, he said that Iran says they are in a state of collapse. And so I was reading today about there are experts who think that Iran has 2 days, 2 months, maybe even a little bit longer, but not much longer, before their oil capacities are tapped out and possibly they suffer irreversible damage. Is that persuasive to you at all, or do you think that nobody should wait for that?
Well, I think we underestimate the regime, and we've done that more than once. The reality is, yes, we've taken away 80% of their revenues. That's not sustainable. At some point, the regime will economically collapse if we do that. But in the near term, They will do everything that they can, Dana. I just keep coming back to this point, to survive. Because they don't care about their people. They've already proven it, given all the economic woes they had before we put the blockade in place. And that's where they are. Let's finish it, is my recommendation. The status quo, they'll drag it on for weeks and for months. That in terms of blockade, and they shut down the Straits of Hormuz, and all these other countries are suffering as a result of it. We have a much better solution than that, and that is go back to the original plan, as I stated.
General Jack Keane, on a pivotal day there, thank you so much for being here with us. Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.